Introducing the all-time champ of all kinds of cleaning, Mr. Clean. Yes, Procter & Gamble, who knows more about getting things clean than anybody, presents Mr. Clean, the new all-purpose liquid cleaner. Mr. Clean does more cleaning, faster and easier than any other type of cleaner, cleanser, soap, or detergent you ever use. Quickly wipes away dirt on linoleum and tile floors. No rinse necessary. Cleans soot and marks on painted walls and woodwork. Straight from the bottle, Mr. Clean swishes off bathtub rings, grease, and sticky spots on stoves, ovens, sinks. He'll even help do laundry, boost cleaning power, leaves a fresh, clean smell.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute. Mr. Clean will clean your whole house and everything that's in it. Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Well, everybody, welcome to today's Spark session, Lessons Learned from Mr. Clean, How to Hold True to Your Voice in Times of Change. Launched in 1958, Mr. Clean has maintained consistency on TV for most of the product's lifeline. It's been an interesting time going back and looking at a lot of the old commercials over time and just seeing the same bald little guy with his dog helping people make their lives easier through cleaning their homes. Today we'll look a little bit more deeply into Mr. Clean's Facebook personality starting in about 2014 and continuing through the present day to find out what went wrong with the brand consistency as they became more active on social media, and more importantly, what we can do as organizations to avoid this same mistake. So we'll start today by reviewing Mr. Clean's brand character, then looking back at when things were going well on Facebook, look at the present day Mr. Clean Facebook and what it tells us about their social media management, and then lessons we can learn as we move forward. So for those of you who are new to Spark Freedom's community, we like to help our friends organize around the following process. First, define your objectives, your target audience. Do market research if you need to on your target audience to understand what really speaks to them. Develop a strategy and begin implementing that. The second step is to align your team around the message. Go through an arrowhead creation process. Prepare the team to deliver and defend the message so that you have everybody on your team, while maybe not saying the exact same words, saying complementary words. I like to think of it like reading from a music score. You know, the altos are going to sing a slightly different line than the sopranos. Same with your policy team and your communications team. But hopefully they all work together to create a wonderful score for your supporters and the people you're reaching out to. And then build your communications campaign and then launch. So the reason we like to work with people to really hone down on step 1 and 2 is so that when you launch, whatever you're putting together, and in this case for Mr. Clean, it's a Facebook campaign, it's built out of the same biosphere that everything else is. This Spark session focuses in on their Facebook campaign, and for those of you who are new, if you want to get to know us a little bit more, you can visit our website. So let's dive into Mr. Clean's brand character and brand story. There are 2 things that must be in place to stay true to your voice as you go into any campaign. And the first thing's probably the hardest thing for many of us, and that's clear accountability of who's responsible for overseeing the consistency of your brand and making sure it's supported by all members of your team so that if there's any questions, they know who to talk to. Changes like changes in staff or extremely busy times as you're getting ready for an event, these are times when if accountability is not in place and a question comes up and somebody just acts without, working as the team on your brand communications, you may end up having the errant, weird, mail your underwear to a congressman campaign come out of your organization, and that's not a good thing, right? So that's the first thing that needs to be in place. The second thing is a short, clear articulation of your brand's goal, your target audience, your copy strategy, and brand character that everyone in your organization can read. So the key to this is plain language. I know, having worked in marketing and communications coaching for about 15 years now, I like to use words that people may not understand. Strategic objective. What in the world does that mean? Uh, Target audience. Some people may not know what that is exactly. So spending some time with your staff, but then also using 1 and 2 syllable words that make it really clear, um, really can help anybody on your team, from the entry level intern who's coming to check out your, the free market world for the first time, all the way up to the CEO of your organization. And I like to think about our brand foundation as sort of like Superman coming in with this one piece of paper that everybody can understand. So really getting your marketing strategy goals and copy strategy into clear language is the second thing that needs to be in place, especially during times of change when it's very hard to get out and about. Now, back to Mr. Clean. That's what we're all here for, right? So that first video was one of the first commercials ever made for Mr. Clean. Let's fast forward to 1980 and think about this while you watch this video. Is the brand character the same? Is the voice the same, even though it's 30 years later? So let's look.
Who leaves the shine so shiny you have to ask? Is it wet?
No, it's dry.
A shine so shiny you have to ask. Is it wet?
No, it's dry.
Who leaves the shine without streaking, without risking? So convincing. Is it wet? Is it dry? You know the answer, you know the guy. The Clean's man. The Clean is the man. Behind that shine. Is it wet? Or is it dry?
Okay, so that was a little bit different, but it did have some consistencies with the original commercial. It has a slightly different jingle, although even in commercials that have been put out in the last, 6 months, you'll still hear the original jingle they wrote. But both commercials rely on Mr. Clean, their brand mascot, a hunky cleaning companion who's ready to get tough on dirt. But he has a sense of humor. Like, you'll notice he's the trickster. He's winking at the person cleaning who has fooled whoever's in the household into thinking the floor is wet in this case. Both of the ads seem targeted at women, somewhere between 20 and 40 years old, and somebody who's in charge of keeping the house clean for her family. And then, most importantly, what they're trying to convey is that this one cleaning product makes your life easy because it gets with one product you can clean very tough messes without it seeming like a lot of work, which helps you convey to your family that you love them and are able to take care of them while saving your own self time. Okay, so Procter & Gamble owns the Mr. Clean product line, and they are very proprietary about any of their strategy documents. So obviously I could not reach out to Procter & Gamble and say, hey, what is your brand strategy? What is your copy strategy? They would have never shared that with me. However, after looking at about 25 commercials that they've done since 1950 to today, if I were going to write their brand strategy, I would say something along the lines of, Mr. Clean makes tough cleaning jobs easy so that you can keep things clean without breaking your back. You need to persuade women who are in charge of cleaning the house that Mr. Clean makes tough jobs easy so that you can keep things sparkling clean without breaking your back. That's what I would write as the copy strategy. I might not be right on, but I'm sure I'm in the direction. Now, what is the power of a copy strategy in this case? Well, this one sentence is pretty easy. This is what you want. This is telling anybody what you want to communicate about Mr. Clean's brand, right? So it's the one sentence description you can give to anybody new on staff and say, do you understand this? If so, everything you ever put out, every single time we talk about the product, has to communicate this. Now, how does that work for Facebook? Well, as you're running into, if you were put in charge of digital strategy and you move into your Facebook plan for the year, you'd say, okay, so everything I do has to do that. However, there's another piece that needs to be in place, and that is your brand story. Many of you know we work with people as they develop their policy stories and brand stories. And where I like to start with a brand story is a profile. Now, for an organization, it's not going to be a hunky, bald mascot, right? It's going to be our organization, and then the profile will be the people of the people I'm wanting to talk about, the people we help as an organization. In our case, it's going to be communications directors and CEOs at free market organizations. In this case, for Mr. Clean, we've got, the guy in white, his brand story. He's a hunky man. He has been a hunky man since 1957, and he's strong just like his product. So even their choice of mascot is underlining that they are a strong product. He's bald with an earring. He's had an earring since 1957. He almost always wears a clean white t-shirt, and I'm pretty sure that they have insisted on that for the reason. The only time I've seen him out of a white outfit has been around Christmas when he's wearing crazy sweaters. Has a playful sense of humor. He likes tricking those who don't do the cleaning into not knowing that the floor is wet, for example. And if you look at Mr. Clean's personality over time, he's a trickster in other ways. He does have a dog named Cash, and you may not have noticed it in the first video, but the dog was there, and that's Cash. Cash has turned into a complimentary character as they're talking about cleaning, because Cash can track in mud, which then needs to be cleaned up. And he provides an easy, well-researched cleaning solution, and it's one product does it all. Now, in modern years, they've come out with the magic eraser, and they have some gloves, but basically, even the magic eraser is designed to do more than one thing. It can take fingerprints off walls, it can get grease off of the hood in your oven, it can clean your counters, it can get tough jobs done on your floors. It's very similar to their original product, which was a liquid product that you could use on floors or in laundry. So one product does it all. So that's an example of his brand story. Now, what could we do with our brand to put something like this together? You could put your organization at the top, Beacon Center, for example, out of Tennessee, since I'm in Tennessee, and then write a profile of who you're helping. In this case, I'll think of somebody they did a couple years ago. They had a woman who was dying of cancer who needed help through a free market solution. And what she needed was access to experimental medicines to see, as a last ditch effort, can I live? So, you put her face there. You write, okay, it's a person approximately this age, in this case, woman, approximately between 30 and 45 years old. The government's in her way, keeping her from living in this case. So the government's in her way and keeping her from accomplishing her desire in life. Her desire in life is to beat cancer if she can, so she can be there for her family. And the Beacon Center provides empirical support for why the solution to her problem is in the reduction of government regulation. So that helps tell their brand story, even though they're not talking about Justin, who is the head of the Beacon Center, right? So you use something like that, and I try to start with a specific story and then make it a little bit generic if we've already got somebody, but pulling from the real story is very important. And then this becomes our archetype, and we just start looking for people like this who help us tell our brand story. Why do we do that? Because we dive into Facebook. So this is the brand story. The three key elements you want to think about as you're writing your own brand story is it emotional to your buyer? Now, those of you who have been through an Arrowhead work session know that this is the three elements of a powerful message, right? So this is, Kevin Kerr goes over this as we're putting together the elevator pitch or Arrowhead message that you build into your story. So is it emotional to your buyer? Who's your buyer? That's up to you to define. In our case, our buyer are people who we can help improve their marketing and communications, mostly communications staff and CEOs at organizations in the Freedom Network. So is it emotional to your buyer? Is it differentiated from your competition? Your competition has a solution too. In our case, this is usually state-controlled solution for expanding Medicaid. That's going to help her get better, right? Well, no, you still can't get access to your medication. So your solution of right to try laws would be differentiated from expanding care that's not helping her live or even giving her a chance to live. And then 3, and this is most important, and this is what we're all very good at, is it credible? Do you deliver what you promise? If it's emotional to the buyer and differentiated, but when they try it, it doesn't work worth a darn, you probably need to look at your story and say, well, that's not the right story to tell. So let's look back at when the times were good with Mr. Clean's Facebook personality. And this is back in 2014. They had a really good social media management firm or staff, I'm not sure. Let's look at it and why it was good. Here's 3 posts that I just pulled out of random times over the course of a 10-month period of time from around December 2014 through the summer that year. The trick then became, for this person, was how do I translate Mr. Clean into social media in a way that's engaging? And of course, this goes back to your goals. What are you trying to do? Are you reaching new people so they understand what Mr. Clean is? Or are you trying to convert existing ones to try a new product? So if you look at that first post on the left, what they were doing here really well was making Mr. Clean a personality that was interesting. It was tapping into a current event and then linking it back to the magic eraser as a cleaner. And Mr. Clean was talking in his own voice, not in the third person. So, clean your skates with step 1, clean your skates with magic eraser, showing the breadth of product flexibility. And then at step 2, attempt the 360 double clean spin. And this particular post was probably not promoted through advertising. They had already had a fairly good following. They got 1,100 likes and 383 shares. This other post is an example of Cash coming into the picture. Cash and I went out and played catch today. I think he's a little rusty. Okay, well, that doesn't actually tell me to buy a cleaning product. So if I were going to say, does every communication explain that Mr. Clean gets tough on dirt and makes tough jobs easy? I would say they failed on that one. However, this is where translating a copy strategy to your social media can mean that not every single picture explains every part of your copy strategy. In the aggregate, that particular week, they had 3 posts, and the 3 of them together, in fact, supported the copy strategy. So they were doing it in 3 parts. And that one got 26,000 likes and 556 shares. The third one was, again, Hunky Mr. Clean with Clean the Internet. I'm not sure what that was in response to, but it was probably something in the news. It says, why break the internet when you can clean the internet? And this one got 3.6 thousand likes and almost 1,400 shares. This one's interesting because the conversion rate from likes to shares is fairly high. The other ones are coming in at between 1 and 5%. This one was almost 30%. So a post like that's pretty fantastic. So they really hit a note with that one, and that's one way you can look. Like, all the likes in the world don't help you unless people engage with it. It goes back again to something we talk about as we go through brand and message development, and that's public positive feedback. When somebody says back to you your message, you know that they have tapped into it and have clued in and support it. And that affirmation makes them more likely to A, remember you, which is important, and B, take action. So let's, in the aggregate from March 2014 through December 31, 2014, this page got 615,000 likes, a little bit more than that, and 34,000 shares for a share conversion rate of about 5%. Which was pretty happening. And people who were engaging, if you look at the comments, are talking about how much they like the product. They're talking about how they use it. They're sharing their own stories. Those kind of comments are gold, and they're gold for us when we're able to engage our audiences in that way. So they told the story of Mr. Clean over time all year long. And we can actually, I'm going to hit escape and hope that the webinar does not, sometimes the software makes me sad. So if you look over here on Mr. Clean's page, everything he's doing, there's nothing dirty in my high school locker. He's talking about high school. They have the picture of him in braces. So they're really building out this character. Happy New Year post in his 80s looking jacket. Thanks to Magic Eraser, you don't need to worry if your party gets a little carried away. It's always supporting some sort of story, always tapping into current thing. As a kid, I offered to clean snow from people's driveways for $5, but they misunderstood and paid me instead. So he was going to pay them, they paid him. So he's always sort of this like weird, quirky cleaning nerd. My folks always knew which presents were for me. Then something crazy happened. So we come up here to February of 2015. This is the last time Mr. Clean speaks in his own voice. And I think one of the good things about having a mascot is you can speak in his voice. As an organization, obviously we're not going to make up a mascot and speak in their voice, but we can speak in an approachable voice that communicates our brand character, whether it's that we're experts or that we care about how free markets can give people the opportunities to be great and care about when non-free markets hurt people. It's that empathy that really is important, especially on something like Facebook where people are interacting with you back and forth. So my Magic Eraser Variety Pack makes all your tough spring cleaning jobs so easy you'll have time to stop and smell the roses. 12,000 likes, 342 shares, probably was not promoted through advertisement. Not bad. We have Mr. Clean in the background smelling the roses. Boom. I now feel like I just got a circular in the newspaper in my mailbox that is giving me a coupon, right? So from February to March, something changed. And the first thing you see is he's not speaking in the first person. It's the brand voice coming out. And the first thing they're doing is a contest, which could be really exciting, right? You can entice people with contests. They got 543 likes. That's not very good. They got 40 shares, so some people want to get $100 worth of cleaning help. So they went from talking about how awesome the product was to bribing me to try this. And it kind of started going downhill from there. I call it when the corporate shoe dropped, so to speak. One of two things probably happened here. Somebody quit or they changed vendors. Who knows why? I mean, again, it's Procter & Gamble. I'm not inside their corporate world. So I'm going to go, again, this is where, going back to the presentation, we can look at the light turns off. So these are examples of posts that happened then from March 2015 through December. And you can see it's always got the product at the center, and that's, not unusual. You've got Procter & Gamble making sure they're consistent. You have the product, you have all these coupons. They were really taking a coupon-y sort of approach as they changed this over here too. And this one, they kind of went back to telling their story a little bit. Mr. Clean has personality, and visually he's telling a story. They're starting to get back, but they're still speaking in that voice of sort of, I'm kind of neutral, I'm corporate. It's not really Mr. Clean speaking. It is Mr. Clean, the product line, speaking. So if we look at the numbers again, from March 2015 through December, they got 108,000 likes and 12,000 shares. And interesting to note, they only did a few posts. So they were doing one post a month instead of 2 to 3 posts a week of the former approach, but they were piling money. And so some of them you'll see get 44,000 likes. But even with that approach of fewer posts, but getting more likes and shares, they didn't beat the year when most of their approach was, instead of being promoted posts, was hitting the viral, the viral, if you can call it viral. I'm not sure it was truly viral, but at least hitting a chord with people to make them want to share. And if I were to guess what changed is they looked at the numbers from Facebook with the former person. When they put somebody else in, they said, we want you to beat these numbers. And whoever was there poured advertising dollars into it to bring those numbers up. And again, if you go back to what's your goal, is your goal to get likes on Facebook? If so, I can get you lots of likes, but it does you no good if it doesn't hit people emotionally and drive them to take action for your brand. Again, the two things you need in place to successfully manage your brand voice, it's that clear accountability and internal process. And the second thing is your marketing strategies, gold, and copy strategy in real words. I am confident that number 2 is well under control at Procter. But something happened in that employee change where the voice changed. It probably was a disappointment to some of their followers. I am an avid Mr. Clean follower, even though I only use the Magic Eraser product. And his posts became so uninteresting to me during this change that I stopped liking them, I stopped sharing them, I didn't think they were funny anymore. I stopped looking at them, and they stopped showing up in my feed. So even though I had a history over the former year of watching it, it fell out of my feed. So now that we have, knowing that they have number 2 down pat, and this is something we can learn as organizations, a lot of us do have pretty good clarity on our brand story. When a change happens, revisit your accountability and internal process. So if a communications support staff leaves, go back and say, okay, what were they responsible for? Who were they reporting to? And how are we covering for that? That's one of the most important things to do during times of change. And that will help you keep true to your voice. And, we're not perfect. We had some changes last year that did result in our own brand not staying true to our own voice. And that's part of why we wanted to talk about this today. So what lessons, actually, let's take a look at this. This is head-to-head, 2014 versus 2015. The number I care most about when I'm looking at Facebook for us is how many shares were there or how many interactions. This is, to the scale. They had more than 600,000 likes when they were kicking it, and just over 100,000 later. And then, more importantly, the conversion here, they were up near 34,000, and this is it's less than half. Well, it's about half, 12,000. My guess would be they spent about the same amount of money having the person do it consistently versus paying for advertisement on this. So it's kind of interesting on social platforms how that consistency is very important. So what lessons can we learn from Mr. Clean? The first lesson is a strong brand story and copy strategy, when developed well, can see you through the long haul. And in the case of Mr. Clean, it's over 50 years. I actually today came across this interesting video. I don't have it downloaded, so you'll have to look at it over YouTube. But it's so consistent. Like their brand story is so consistent that when a popular TV show kind of made some Mr. Clean jokes, which may or may not have been paid for, it threw through. And this is from the TV show Lost. I thought this funny.
Well, you're a busy man. So are you. Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease.
All you need is an earring and a mop.
Floors, doors, walls, halls, white sidewall tires, and old golf balls.
Sinks, goes, bathtubs, he'll do. He'll even help clean laundry too.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute.
Mr. Clean will clean your whole house and everything that's in it.
And he clean a kitchen sink.
Quicker than a wink.
And he clean a window sack.
Okay, I'm not going to watch the whole thing, but we can put a link in our follow-up email. They go through all of the Lost scenes where John Locke is going through, and he he's throwing dishes around and having a good time. But they do stay consistent to the brand, and he's always in this white T-shirt, which is hilarious. So he looks just like Mr. Clean. I'll throw the link in your follow-up email just so you can look at the video on your own computer screen. So back to lessons learned. The second lesson is each advertising or outreach medium requires a different approach to be successful. And that's really important. I mean, like that was the thing people weren't getting with social media 10 years ago was it's a conversation. But at the same time, even if it is a conversation, your core brand story and your core copy strategy should never change no matter how different the platform, right? You don't go onto social media and get all crazy and wild and walk off your core message. But you do change how you approach it. And the only thing that changes is how you package that. In the case of Facebook, we have a slightly more casual conversational approach, but we still need to underline our core brand strategy and our core focus. If your organization is focusing on Medicaid reform and repealing the Hall tax in Tennessee and keeping taxes down for people, reducing the regulatory environment in the state, and then education reform, you're going to mostly talk about those things. You're probably not going to talk about freeway development strategy or land use and zoning, right? So you stick to your core, but you still make it interesting. Another lesson learned, story is king to inciting emotions and action. I think it's very worthwhile to look at your brand character and then ask yourself, what is your brand story and how can I translate that into Facebook in an interesting and engaging way? Because it's the emotions that inspire people to take action, and we want to all get people to take action. Story has long been king. In this actually doesn't mean though that you should make a mascot. Many of us can't afford the mascot approach, but Mr. Clean can. So we have to take Mr. Clean with a grain of salt, knowing that we probably are not going to have a hunky bald man as our character. And then the fourth thing is staying true to your voice in times of change is easy if you know the two things that must be in place to develop your strong brand story. And that's clear accountability and that clear, plain language articulation of your brand's goal, target audience, and copy strategy. Interestingly enough, this is where we have the most discussion with groups that we work with. It's that target audience piece, right? Because many of us are like, okay, we're targeting legislators to change policy. Well, yes, but are they the most important audience for you to talk to? And can you afford to focus your marketing and communications on more than one audience with a limited budget? Not in every case, but in most cases, people, as they start evaluating, is it legislators, is it the media, is it somebody else, find that in order to move the audience they want to move, which is legislators and media, their target audience is somebody else. It could be, families in Tennessee, so married couples who earn between $100,000 and $150,000 who are active in their communities and leaders who people look to for advice. It could be business owners who have a small business that has a gross revenue of between $1 million and $1.5 million a year. It can be a lot of different things. You want to define, though, for your own organization who that one target audience is, even though you'll be talking to multiple audiences. Because when you have the one and you have your brand story down for that one, it speaks to the other ones and it helps you develop your brand ambassadors. And then let's talk about warning signs. How do you know when you're starting to go off the rails? There are some pretty standard warning signs that come up as you go through the long term, especially if you're the person responsible for overseeing communications. As your organization grows, you'll have more people reporting to you. There's more policy staff. There's more fundraising staff. There's a lot more people out and about. And you want to start, okay, this month, did I see any warning signs? First warning sign is employees or vendors complaining that they don't understand your message or don't understand what the organization does. It's very frustrating when somebody does not understand what the organization does, but that may not be their fault. It may be our fault. That means maybe we don't have a clear enough language articulation of what we're doing, who we're trying to reach, what we want those people to do, and how that fits into the big picture. So if you see a lot of complaining about that, it's a really good time to go back to your marketing strategy, to your copy strategy, to your goals, to your target audience, and say, okay, so this is what we're doing. These are the activities we're taking to accomplish that, and let's have a talk about it. And it's also a good time, if you're hearing those complaints, to look at your different communication venues and say, okay, are we staying true across those? And if not, take action. Products not getting launched on time. This one, okay, some of us, we all work at organizations that slip a day or two, but if you have something that's taken 3 extra months from when it should to get out, that's a good warning sign that that accountability layer is not in place. And if that accountability layer is not in place, how do you fix it? Well, you jump in and look at where it's breaking down and put the, fix the accountability. Employee or vendor turnover. If people are quitting and or your vendors are firing you, that's a good sign that they're not happy. They're probably not happy because your brand is not staying true and the accountability is not in place. Editorial calendar running behind. If your editorial calendar is running behind all the time, that means, again, number one, you don't have the clear accountability in place, and or somebody is in a position where they should not be and you need to move them. And then a big warning sign is drops in donations or other means of support for your organization, whether that be attendance at events or people helping you when you need to do outreach on a specific policy, or even downloads of your latest report, if that's something you do, watches, people viewing your video. Big drops and things like that are a good indication that something in your strategy has gone off the rails, and it's time to take a look at, okay, are we staying true to our voice, and do we have the accountability in place? So not everybody has a large outreach and marketing budget. We certainly don't, and it's not always easy to get your message out with that. But if you take time to set up clear accountability and clarity on your copy strategy, you can expand your reach to get to your targets by being consistent. Mr. Clean, when things were going well, was putting out 2 to 3 posts a week, and they were tapping into the news cycle, and they were engaging with people. And if you look at the comments, it's all about how they love the post or how they love the product or how they've used the product. People started telling their own stories. When they switched, they were putting out things about once a month. And if you look at the comments, a lot of it is, boy, that magic eraser doesn't work as well as it used to, or boy, I'm really frustrated. Now, some people still said supportive things, but there are some huge warning signs in the comments that something is not going right with the Mr. Clean product line and brand. And most importantly, engaging them emotionally and keeping your existing supporters loyal. That can happen if you remain very consistent. If you're interested in learning more about putting together the copy strategy and those sorts of things, I recommend go to our website if you'd like, if you're not already on our email, and go under Spark Session. There's a sign up for our email, and we do put out a monthly newsletter that just reviews our blog posts. We do have a blog and are starting to put in some more templates and tips and tricks as we move further into the year. Very excited. If you sign up for our email, we're going to be launching a product called the Story Bank, which will allow you to search stories on policy issues that we've found and other organizations may have used, so that if you're like, okay, I have to write something on minimum wage, oh, here's 10 stories that other organizations have used on minimum wage that we can start building into some of our policy issues. And then we also have an Arrowhead Accelerator coming up on May 1st, and that is May 1st in Nashville area. And it's, I'll see if I can pull it up on my screen here. Excuse the clutters. The reality of what my desktop looks like is here. So this is the Arrowhead Accelerator, May 11th through 12th. If you register before the end of the month, it's a $300 discount, and the registration does include your hotel and food while there. So this is a great way to, A, learn some of these tools that we go over in the bigger work sessions, but B, really get good at defending donor privacy, which many of us face in our day-to-day work. And then finally, if you're interested more, you can email me, nicole@sparkfreedom.org. I'm going to end the recording of the webinar, but then if people have questions they want to talk about, I can stay on for another 15 minutes or so. I want to